Well, all right, let's talk about fasting. You know, there is a lot of conversation going on in the fitness world around fasting and the physical benefits of routine fasting. You know, some people do regular intermittent fasting, which is only eating between certain hours of the day. You know, also, some people like to do these annual prolonged fasting cleanses to detox their body. And so fasting has become a more talked about discipline in the physical health industry. But the idea of fasting as a spiritual discipline has actually been around since the time of Moses, and actually even probably long before that. And so very simply, on a spiritual level, fasting is the practice of self-denial for the purpose of relying on Jesus for all that we need. And so fasting is talked about and practiced all throughout Scripture, and it always implied refraining from eating food or drinking water for the purpose of engaging with God in prayer and entering into His presence. Now, if you haven't fasted in a while, or perhaps you've never fasted, it can be a little bit confusing and maybe scary trying to figure out what a fast is supposed to be, what it is meant to accomplish. And so in this video, what I'm wanting to accomplish, I want to just try and put your mind at ease and just help you know what God is accomplishing in you as you fast, and then give you a couple of different ways that you can fast, and then 6 steps to help you get started in your fast. And so that's what we're going to accomplish in this video. So let's jump in. What is God doing in a fast? There's a lot, honestly, that God is doing in you and through you when you are fasting. You know, as I mentioned, fasting is all over Scripture. And so here are 4 things that I see God doing as you fast. And this is not the full list of what God is doing. It's just 4 major things that God is doing. First, fasting develops a deeper friendship between you and God. And so in Psalm 42, we see how our very being and our souls are created to be near God. And so in fasting, we are quieting the noise and distractions of life to develop the friendship with God that we were created to enjoy. So that's the first one. The second thing God's doing is fasting renews our hunger for heavenly things. And so in John chapter 6, it talks about Jesus being the bread of life that will not spoil or go bad. And so fasting renews our hunger for Jesus, who sustains life far greater than food ever could. The next thing is that fasting trains the soul in the realm of self-denial. And so in Mark chapter 8, verse 34 says that we are to follow Jesus. If we want to follow Jesus, we have to deny ourselves and take up our crosses and follow Jesus daily. So often we say, I'll follow you, Jesus, as long as XYZ happens. But following Jesus is a self-denial of our comfort. Because ultimately Jesus will lead us to places of discomfort as we step into the gap on behalf of people who need Jesus. And so fasting trains our soul in self-denial. And then lastly, fasting brings clarity in prayer. And so in Daniel chapter 10, as Daniel was seeking clarity with what God was asking of him, he fasted and prayed, and clarity came to him. And so fasting brings clarity in prayer. And these are, again, just some of the ways that God works through fasting. There's certainly more, but these 4 happen over and over again in Scripture. Let's talk about how to fast. That's always the big question. How do we fast? What are we supposed to do in a fast? Well, there are 4 primary ways that people have fasted throughout church history. First is a major fast, and this is abstaining from all food and all water for a 24-hour period. And so if you're wanting to try this kind of a fast, it's really important to prepare your body for that. So drink lots of fluids several days leading up to this fast, and try not to overextend yourself physically during this kind of fast. So that's the first fast. The second kind of fast is called a minor fast. And this is abstaining from food and drink for a set period of time, like perhaps from sunup to sundown. This is more commonly known today as intermittent fasting. This is what people do. The third fast is called a partial fast, and this is giving up certain foods or certain meals during the fasting period. So for example, giving up meat for a 24-hour period, or just simply giving up breakfast or lunch on one of those days. And then finally, there is the soul fast. And as I mentioned, fasting in Scripture almost always has to do with abstaining from food and water. But there are other ways of fasting that abstain from certain things that cause us to be distracted and miss spending time with the Lord. And so fasting from things like social media or working out, our phones, live sports perhaps, whatever it is. And so on the day that we're fasting, you can choose to give up watching any TV that day. You can spend that time that you would normally be watching in prayer with Jesus. And so those are the 4 ways to fast that you can choose for your fasts on Wednesday. And so how do you get started? How do you get these things started? You know, with any spiritual discipline, it's important to have a plan. You've heard the saying, a failure to plan is actually planning to fail. Well, it tends to ring true, right? And so there is a way to get started for your Wednesday fast that's really important. So the first thing is you want to set your objective. Know what you are wanting from this time. Are you wanting to simply have more intimacy with God? Are you wanting discernment for decisions? Are you looking for a renewal or healing? Whatever the objective, state that to yourself before the fast so you know why you're getting into it. Then choose which fast that you want to do. You don't have to do the same fast each week, and you also don't have to switch it up if you don't want to, but choose which fast you're going to do that week. And the third thing is to prepare your heart and your mind, your body, and your community. So get yourself in the right frame of mind and hydrate well before you do this, but then also let your family know what you're going to be doing, skipping all the meals or simply not eating certain things. This is just a courteous thing to do for your family as you're fasting. The fourth thing you can do is then make your plan. When are you fasting? Or what hours of the day are you fasting? What is the fast? What are you going to do during those times that you're giving up certain meals? The fifth thing is to start the fast and stick to it. You know, fasts are never easy. They're not meant to be easy. So find what you are wanting to do, start it, and then stick with it. You'll be so glad that you did. And then finally, share your experience with others. You know, we're doing these Wednesday fasts together, so share the experience and encourage one another along the way. You know, that's fasting. I'm sure not every question was answered, but it should be enough to get you started on your weekly Wednesday fasts.